Namaskar and hello everyone. So this is the second lecture in the chapter Motion in a Straight Line. This is continued from the previous lecture. In the last class we have understood what is the concept of rest and what is motion, and we have also understood what is frame of reference with a very interesting example about that cat crossing the road. Okay, so in the present class our first topic will be types of motion. Okay, again, this is little bit of background and little bit of conceptual stuff which you need to understand basically. So you see, I'm not rewriting these things again. You can just follow from here. So when we say types of motion, okay, we have three types of motion. First is translatory motion, second is rotational motion, and the third is oscillatory motion. Okay. So translatory motion, when you call something as translatory motion, you see any body, any car traveling in a straight line is having a translatory motion. Okay. When you talk about rotational motion, the door being opened or closed is an example, can be an example of rotational motion. Okay, even the fan can be an example. A moving fan can be an example of a rotational motion. But you have a little bit of difference, like when a body travels in a circle. Okay, like the planets. You see, the planets are revolving around the sun. Okay, in that case, the planets are having a circular motion. But the planets are also spinning in their own orbit. In that case, you'll say that the planets are having rotational motion in their own axis. Okay, so understand the difference between the two. The third one is oscillatory motion. In oscillatory motion, what happens? In oscillatory motion, they move, or you can say they move to and fro repeatedly about a fixed point called the mean position. Okay, I'll show that with the diagram. Swinging of a pendulum is an example. That is an oscillatory motion. It moves to and fro, right? Now, again, you have a special case with oscillatory motion. When the amplitude of the oscillatory motion is too small, then you don't say it as oscillatory motion, but precisely vibratory motion. Okay, so these are the three categories of motion. Now I'll just show you one with the help of a diagram. Like car, you have a car. Okay, you have a car, or you have a bus traveling in a straight line. Okay, traveling in a straight line. This is an example of translatory motion. Here you see, if you consider the particles of the body, okay, that constitutes this bus, all the particles, have the same displacement. That is written in the definition, and this holds good. Like you need to understand that all the particles in the bus, they are having the same displacement as the overall bus. Okay, so that is what happens with translatory motion. That is case number one. Case number two, you have this, say you have the earth spinning about its own axis. Okay, earth spinning about its own axis. Say this is the axis. Now, in case of a vehicle wheel also, if you notice, the axis does not move. Okay, the axis stays at rest. The axis of rotation stays at rest, but the entire body keeps on moving. In case of a wheel, this was the first diagram was the case of earth. In case of a wheel, the axis will not move at all. Okay, that will remain at rest, and the entire body or the wheel will rotate around this axis. Okay, now the door example is given. In case of a door, when you open or close it, all right, when you open or close it, the hinge, okay, the hinges, or yeah, like the hinges on which the door stands, if you notice, the hinge does not move at all, they stays at rest. Now there is the door is restricted by the frame of the door to have a 360-degree rotation, right? Had it been possible, like if you do not have the frame which provides the restriction, the door could rotate 360 degree. In that case also the axis on which the door is standing, that would not move. Okay, that would remain at rest. Yes, so that is your example of rotational motion. All right, rotational motion. Now you can have a special case, just like I said you that in case the body, say this is the sun and the earth is revolving around it. Okay, so in that case you say that the earth has a rotational has a circular motion around the sun. This you will call as circular motion. Okay, so we go to oscillatory motion. So the next situation is oscillatory motion. Now you have this pendulum. Okay, you have seen a pendulum, right? You have this pendulum. It moves to and fro, isn't it? When you disturb its stable position, now this position is called mean position, right? The pendulum tries to attain this position, or keeps a tendency to stay in this position. Now when you disturb it, when you move it to the extreme, you call this as amplitude. Is a maximum displacement go, you call it as amplitude, right? Or amplitudes. Now this is the extreme of the pendulum. So in both sides you'll have amplitude, right? Now this pendulum moves to and fro this way. This is the motion of the pendulum, right? Now in case of atoms, say you ring a bell, you have a bell, okay? Say you have this bell, and when you ring it, I'm very poor at art, okay? Now you have this bell and you just ring the bell. So when you ring the bell, if you touch the bell, you will understand. If you touch the bell, it starts vibrating. Okay. So in that case, what happens? The molecules, atoms and molecules, which constitute the material of the bell, they move to and fro, but with very less amplitude, right? In that case, you call this motion to be vibratory motion. Here, it will be called vibratory motion. When do you call it vibratory motion? Vibratory motion when amplitude is less, okay, is extremely small. Extremely small. When amplitude is extremely small, you call it as vibratory motion, remember. Okay, so these are the three categories of motion that we have. After that, we have location of a point in space. For that, I brought in a diagram from Google Maps, from Apple Map. This is, you won't get the same interface with Google Maps. So what is the title? Location of a point in space. So firstly, you see this. Now many of you know about it. For those of you who do not know, you can look into this example. This will give you some insight. Now you see, you have three coordinates, x, y, and z, right? Now you can fix this. You look at this is the origin. Okay. Now you see, you can fix this at the corner of your room. Okay, in the room you're sitting right now, or it could be in the roof also, if you have a plain roof. All right. Now you see, this would represent your three walls, like two walls, and the floor of your room, or it could be, if you take it in inverted position, it could be the roof and the side two walls, right? Now firstly, know the names. How do you call it, right? Now you see, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. You'll call this plane to be your xy plane, okay? Now this is the z-axis and this is the y-axis. So you'll call this plane to be zy plane or yz plane. The order of the alphabet, that doesn't matter at all. Okay, and you have this x-axis and this is z-axis. So this is your xz plane or zx plane. Okay. So this can be placed at the corner of your room, and accordingly you can mark one of the line as x-axis, the other line as z-axis, and the one which touches the roof, all right, that you can mark as y-axis. Now if I ask you, say you put your hand in space, बीच में रखते हो, okay, not on the floor, not on the wall, but in between somewhere. Then how do you locate the position of that particular point? You locate with the three axes, x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. This will be given in meter or centimeter as in the case. Yeah. Now I will show you one more example to understand this, a more familiar example in the map. Okay. In the map you can find out any location, right? Say I am showing you one particular place. This is right away the road adjacent to Scholars Institute, Itanagar. Okay, this particular location. Now you see, if you know how to locate your position in Google Maps or any kind of Apple Maps and all, right? You will find your location to have some latitude and some longitude. Usually, or this is like north. The latitude will be, sorry, the longitude will be along north. Okay, that will represent the north, and the latitude will represent the east, right? So that will constitute your northeast or northwest, like that. If we are located in the northern hemisphere, right? But if we are located at the southern hemisphere, your coordinates will mean southeast or southwest. It goes like that. Now, if you want to break it down into x, y, and z axis, you see the latitude will correspond to x axis and the longitude will correspond to y axis. Now, these are spherical coordinates. Therefore, these x and y axis or latitude and longitude are given in degrees. That you need not worry as of now. अभी के लिए just समझ लो कि ये सब degrees में दिया हुआ है. And the z axis we have considered it in like units of distance, okay, or units of height, you can say meter. So यहाँ पे what is the latitude? The latitude is up to 2 decimal place. If I consider it is 27.09 degree, and the longitude is 93.62 degree. All right. So these are the x-axis and y-axis. Like if you take a map, okay, or if you take a mobile phone or a GPS device, if you put these coordinates, you will get the location of a particular position or of a particular place in the map, right? Now you reach that place and you have to find a person. A certain nowadays you might have seen, you can share your live location, or you can share your location via WhatsApp or via any other instant messengers. Okay, and with that location, the other person can trace you. Okay, and that has become a very convenient way of meeting someone in person. Like if you are in a totally new place, you cannot just keep on naming the labels that you see on the shops or on the street side, right? It becomes very difficult to locate the person. In that case, what you can do is that you can use the latitude and the longitude, or you can say you can use the coordinates, right? If you share your coordinates, the other person has a digital or a mobile phone, right? The other person can locate you very easily. Yes, and in case of live location, what happens is whenever you move, if you are walking here and there, the location that you have shared, the live location that you have shared with the other person, that will also move. So that's a dynamic location sharing process. Okay, dynamic location sharing process. That's a wonderful thing. You should try. Now that will give you the x and y axis of a certain place, right? But say in the particular location you have a 10-story building, right? And the person is sitting in the 5th floor. So by knowing this too, it won't be sufficient to find out the person. In that case, you need to also know that the person is located on the 5th floor. Okay. So he tells you that I'm sitting at the 5th floor. It is very fine to find out the person. The other way around is, now of course this will not in terms of meter, this will not apply practically. But if you talk on the coordinate basis, okay, on the coordinate basis, the other measurement for the third dimension is your z-axis, okay, or again I am telling you, like x, y, z, these are just names. You can put the names anyway, right? Y, z, x or z, y, x. The names really don't matter. So what is this z-axis particularly here in the present case? The z-axis is your mean sea level. Okay, so all over the Earth, every height that we measure, okay, is based on a certain zero, a certain reference level. Like you have the Mount Everest, which is 8848 meter high, right? So the measurement has started from some zero, and that zero is the sea level. Okay, so for Itanagar, the mean sea level is 530 meter. You can just check Google to find out the mean sea level of your place. Okay, the height of your place in accordance with the mean sea level. So you have x, y axis, x axis, y axis, and z axis, and therefore you can find out the location of a person. But there is one more thing to it. Okay, of course that is off the syllabus, but still I add that in this topic always. That is the fourth dimension, which you call as the time dimension. Now, when you say fourth dimension, when you say 4D, in 4D, your 3D refers to space coordinates. Okay, this is just for your general knowledge. And the 4D, the fourth dimension is your time coordinate. Now, you want to meet a person and the person doesn't share the live location, but he has shared the x, y, and z axis on the global map, right? So you find you with the help of this x, y, and z axis, you reach that particular place. But say the person stays there at 9 a.m., say from 9 to 10 a.m., and you just reach at some other time, say in the evening, then suddenly you won't find the person. So in that case, you can say that you also need the fourth dimension to figure out the location of the person. Okay, not just location, to meet the person, I would say. To figure out the location, three dimension is very much sufficient. Okay, so I hope this should clear this x, y, and z dimension concept, right? Or the three dimension concept. Now, when do you say that something is in motion or something is at rest? If one of these three coordinates x, y, and z, if one of these, at least one of these coordinates changes with time, okay, then you say the body is in motion. If two coordinates changes with time, then also it will be in motion. Three coordinate changes, then also it will be in motion. But the name will differ. Like if x coordinate only changes, then you will say it as one dimension motion. Okay, if x coordinate changes. If x and y coordinate changes, say x and y, okay, it could be z and x also. You will call that as two dimension motion. If all the three x, y, and z coordinate changes, you will call that as three dimension motion, right? We live in a 3D world, right? So in case of one dimension motion, so what can be examples of one dimension motion? You can have ample number of examples, like an ant walking along a wire, okay, straight wire, an ant is walking. In that case, you say because to locate the position of the ant, say the ant is here. To locate the position of the ant, you will just require this distance. You don't need y-axis, you don't need z-axis, right? So you say that the ant is having a one-dimension motion. The other example, a very dynamic, I have put here some dynamic examples so that you are thinking horizon expands. The other example can be bullet fired with a 9mm pistol, right? So what is 9mm pistol? You can Google it. Okay, just for your curiosity, I have taken up some latest terms like 9mm pistol, a bullet fired, right? About the range, about the impact, you can study about it. So that will be an example of a one dimension motion. You can put any number of examples or any kind of examples, provided the definition is taken care of. Now, what is two dimension motion? In two dimension motion, two of the three coordinates will change with time. Okay. So you see a T-90 Bhishma tank, right? Now these days, like these tanks are being installed in the Indo-China border along the, along the Himalayan terrain, right? So the situation or the border situation, the LAC situation is not very good with China, and China always had this habit of poking the bordering nations. It has a trouble with every nation, neighboring, its neighborhood nations, you can say. So in case of two dimension motion, if you have the coordinates, so you can plot this example. You can have other examples like ant crawling on a tabletop, on a table, ant crawling on your say book. Okay. So to locate the position of this ant, you need these axes, say these axes and these axes, right? So this will be the y-axis and this will be the x-axis. So once you have x and y-axis, you can find out the position of the ant. And the third one is three dimension. So here all the three coordinate changes, right? If bird flying in space can be an example of a three-dimensional motion. Here we have plotted the example of Rafale jet, right? So everyone is aware of this. So Rafale jet is navigating in the sky with a top speed of 1389 km per hour. Okay. So Rafale jet was recently purchased from the purchase deal happened long back, but it was recently I guess five planes were delivered to India. More are still on the way. So it's a what is the generation? I don't exactly recall. It's a 4.5G aeroplane, I guess. It's very capable. Okay. Rafale jet. Let me check the generation. So yeah, it's a 4.5 generation aircraft. Okay, and China has its J-20, which it claims to be the fifth generation. Anyway, so you can study more detail about these examples I've given over here. So after this, we have what? We have a scalar and vector quantities. So you see, firstly, I'll ask you like, what is a physical quantity? What is a physical quantity? Okay. So physical quantity is any quantity that can be measured. Okay, you call that as physical quantity. So any quantity that you can measure. So you can have lot of examples like you can measure length, you can measure time, you can measure mass, you can measure force. All these are physical quantities. So this can be measured, right? Now if I ask you what is not a physical quantity, okay, of course we don't study about non-physical quantities in physics, okay, but still just for interest I'm asking what is not a physical quantity. So far they are not physical quantities. Maybe in the times ahead we'll have them as physical quantities. So far we cannot measure emotion, right? We cannot measure emotions. So like emotion like happiness, sadness, emotion like jealousy. Jealousy is not an emotion, I guess. Anyway, like happiness, sadness, jealousy, greed, all these are what? These are not physical quantities. You cannot measure them. Okay, you cannot measure their magnitude, the emotion, or you can say the magnitude of emotion, the magnitude of happiness, the magnitude of someone's greed. This cannot be measured, right? So they are what? They are not physical quantities as of now. I'll just remove them from the screen. Now, whenever you talk about physical quantities, you can categorize them as scalar quantity and vector quantity. Okay, so scalar quantity, what is a scalar quantity or who is a scalar quantity? In a scalar quantity, they will have magnitude only. Okay, they will have no direction will be mentioned, right? So you see, examples, क्या क्या होगा? Mass is an example, right? Mass doesn't have any direction. Mass is the amount of matter contained in a body. Now, if I ask you what is your weight, you will straightway tell me like 50 kg, 60 kg, 70 kg, whatever, right? But that is not the weight. Since the unit is kg, therefore it is a mass, right? So if you go to moon, your mass will remain the same. If you are 50 kg, you will remain 50 kg there, right? But your weight, if I ask you what is the weight, your weight is, if it is 50 kg, if 50 kg is your mass, then your weight is 50 kg into, considering the value of a small g, that is acceleration due to gravity, as 10 meter per second square, your weight will be 500 Newton. Okay, that is the weight on Earth. Now, if you go to moon, this will be divided by 6, because the value of g in moon is 1/6 that of the Earth. In moon, the value of g is 1/6 that of the value of Earth. Okay. Now, if you go to Jupiter, the value of g will increase again, right? So in that case, your weight will increase, but your mass will always remain the same. That is 50 kg will always remain the same. What is changing is this value of g, and therefore your weight is varying. And what you experience in day-to-day life is your weight. Okay. Now you experience your heaviness in a certain manner, right? Now you can take up this experiment. Okay, whenever you go into water, like if you know swimming, you'll better experience it, and if you do not know swimming, then if you have ever experienced going up to chest level water, and then when you come out on the land, okay, then for a moment you feel that your weight has increased. It takes time for your mind to understand the difference, because while in water the buoyancy was helping you, the buoyancy was reducing your true weight, and you were actually experiencing your apparent weight. Now when you come back to the earth, the buoyancy factor reduces and you feel yourself more heavy. So by that standard, if we talk about, if you go to moon, then what will happen? You'll be like illustrate. In high school, you got that, or in middle school, you got that. That if you can jump 1 meter on Earth, you'll jump 6 meter on moon, right? So you will feel yourself less heavy. But if you can jump 1 meter on Earth, you'll jump very less on Jupiter. I don't know. I do not know. Like what is the? Still that can be checked. Still not an issue. Value of G in Jupiter, right? So what is the value of g in Jupiter? That is, Jupiter, it is 6.98 into 10 to the power, okay, sorry, that's the radius, 26 meter per second square. That is like 9320, okay, 910. In Earth, if you consider that to be 10, so it is less than 3 times. Okay, so your weight, if you are like 500 Newton on Earth, you'll be little less than 1500 Newton on Moon. So your weight will increase. It will be difficult to carry yourself. Understood? And thereby it also affects the height. The G value of a particular planet, that also affects your height. If the value of G of Earth increases, the height that we have, that won't be, as the way we have it now. We would be much more shorter, and even the highest peaks on the Earth, they would not reach. Like Mount Everest would not reach up to 8848 meter. Okay, there are certain calculations. We see that in the chapter called solid properties of solid. Okay, mechanical properties of solid, I guess. that is the first chapter in book 2, chapter number 9. Anyway, those were some extra stuff. So scalar quantity, they have magnitude, they have no direction, and examples can be mass, length, time. These are all what? These are all a scalar quantity, right? Whereas vector quantity, they do have magnitude, they do have direction. Okay. Now you see speed is a scalar quantity, but your velocity is a vector quantity. Distance is a scalar quantity. Displacement is a vector quantity, right? Example can be velocity, can be displacement, can be weight can be an example. Okay, then acceleration is an example, force is an example. You apply force in a certain direction, therefore it is a vector quantity. When you do not apply force, in a certain direction, you do not call it as a force. Okay. So I hope these topics are clear. In case you have any questions, you can send me, you can message me. All right. So what is the next topic? I hope this location thing and the coordinate thing, 1 dimension, 2 dimension, 3 dimension is clear. Scalar quantity, vector quantity is clear. Now you see, mathematically, if I show you, like when you take this is a vector quantity, right? Vector quantity is always represented with this arrowhead, remember. And this arrow, if the force is acting irrespective of the direction of the force. Now the other day somebody was asking me, like if the force is acting along this direction, should we place this kind of arrowhead, or we should put this kind of arrowhead? No, the arrowhead is always put in this order only. It is from left to right. Okay, it is like this. It is like this. You never put it in different directions, right? So this is a vector quantity. Now if you want to know the magnitude of the force, you are not concerned about, like you push your table with a 5 Newton force, right, towards east. If you say 5 Newton force towards east, then what you are saying is you are representing the vector. You are telling the 5 Newton force towards east. Now this is the magnitude part, this is the magnitude, and this is the direction. So both things are contained, right, in this f value. Now if I say what is the magnitude of force, then I write down with this modular sign, 2 lines on the either side, right? So a magnitude of force is f only. Now the magnitude of force will be 5 Newton only. You don't mention the direction when the magnitude is asked. I hope this is clear. Okay, so some representations. This will help you while working with derivations and all. I put that as a note here. You can check this note and you will understand. Okay, all the things that I have discussed are written over here in a very proper manner. And understanding the handwriting will be a little bit of difficulty for new people, for new students who are following it, for a couple of days. But once you understand my pattern, you will get used to it. It's not an issue. So note, like I write down only r vector. So writing down only r vector matlab it contains what? It contains direction, or I should say it contains magnitude and direction. So this is a vector quantity. Okay, I write down only r. It contains magnitude only. So it is a scalar quantity. R is representing a distance, or I should say displacement. Okay, so magnitude of displacement will be the distance, provided the body travels in a straight line. That should be mentioned. Okay, so now if I write down r vector and modulus, then this will equate, or this will be equal to r. Now this is only magnitude. Okay, although we have vector here, but we have taken the modulus of that. That means we are finding out the magnitude of the vector, which gives a scalar. So since it is a scalar, so you'll have, since it has only magnitude, therefore it is a scalar. Now we come to unit vector. Now what is a unit vector particularly? Unit vector, you will study the definition and all in the next chapter. Okay, motion in a plane. All right. So as of now, just know that the magnitude of unit vector is always 1. It doesn't affect when you associate unit vector with some other physical quantity. It does not affect the value of the physical quantity. It just tells you about the direction. So it's a unit vector. Okay, it tells only the direction. It doesn't affect the magnitude. Okay, therefore it is a vector quantity. So that is a unit vector. Now if I want to write down, like this r can be written as, now you see this is r vector, right? R vector contains what? R vector contains the magnitude, it contains the direction as well. So firstly I write down the magnitude of r. Okay, so I write down magnitude of r first, then I have this direction of r. Okay, so treat this as a formula. All right, so magnitude of r can be written as this way into r cap. This is the other way of writing it. Okay, you'll find both of them. You'll come across both of them very frequently while working with derivations. Now from this first one, if I want to write down a unit vector r equal to, okay, the value of unit vector in this case, then it will be r vector by r vector modular. Now this can also be written as r vector by r just. Both means the same thing, but based on situation, you will use them accordingly. Okay, I hope today's class is clear. I'll deliver one more lecture and upload the video by tomorrow. Okay, that will contain more stuff, and we'll continue the series. Thank you so much. I hope you have understood, and if you have any queries, you can WhatsApp me, and initially you should WhatsApp me, and if I find, you can also call me, like if I find the query requires telephonic explanation, okay, then I would be happy to help. Thank you.